Okay, so we have a new project here, and we're going to learn a little bit about everything tonight. We're going to take it one step at a time. We're going to learn, refresh ourselves on the if statement. We're going to refresh ourselves on the switch statement. Then we're going to write a function that returns a number so that you don't have to constantly be writing the same code over and over again. So let me add a new source file, which we'll call functions. And we're going to include IOStream. We're going to include, even though we don't really need it right now, string. We're going to include IOmanip. And we're going to do the infamous using namespace. Start with our integer main. Takes no parameters. Now, the main is actually a function that returns an integer. So first thing we're going to do is let's write something that gets a value for a menu item. We want to get a selection. So we're going to start with string and prompt. Please enter a number. So we're going to start easy, and we're going to just start building on it. Then, of course, we're going to need an integer called number, which was set to 0. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to write a number, write a function that gets a number. So normally, in this particular place, you'd go cin number, and then see out your number is. So here we're going to create a function called GetNumber that is actually going to return a number. So we're going to do something called GetNumber. And functions is every word is capitalized, and that helps you remember how it is. And here we don't really need to put anything in it. You will understand that later on. So now we have to go. Now notice this is called the function protocol. Then we're going to actually write the function code. So now we start off with the same thing, and we're going to do get number. We're not passing any parameters right now. And so now actually we are going to pass a parameter. We're going to pass a parameter prompt. So we're just going to put in string because that's the data type. And we're going to get an error very shortly. String, and then I'll call it the prompt. And now what we have to do here is, because we have a function that passes a string to it, we're going to just put string here. The only thing you have to put here is the data type. Down here, you have to put both the data type and something. Now, this does not have to be the same. If this is the same, which I'm going to change shortly, if it's the same, it's only a copy of it. So anything I do to this won't affect it. So I'm going to here put cout the prompt. And now we need to get a number. So we're going to declare an integer number equals 0. Now remember, this number here is local, meaning it only exists between brackets. All variables only exist between brackets. So this number here is not the same as this number here. So now I'm going to print it out here. Then we're going to do cin number. And of course, I always do that backwards. And then we're going to return number. I'm kind of partial to putting them in parentheses, but it's not really necessary. Now, if I didn't do a return statement, so let me comment this out for right now. I should get an error saying that there's a function without a return. So let's see what happens. And that's a very common thing. Okay, so GetNumber must return a value. That's why we need to have it. If you try to do a main without it in here, so let's compile it now. Okay, notice we're not getting that error. But you definitely want to put it in, because if you're not using Visual Studio 2019, you might get a compile error. So you always want to return it. You always want to follow the rules so you don't have to worry about it. All right, so now I claim nothing is going to happen. So I'm going to put in here, cout, you chose, however you spell that, and number, and then endl. Now, nothing should show. Then I will tell you why. So let's run this program. And this program should work, but do absolutely nothing. Okay, you chose 0. So why? I don't understand. The reason is we never called this function. So what we need to do here is number equals GetNumber, and then we want to pass the prompt to it. So assuming I spelled it right, we're good. GetNumber, did I spell it? Yeah, I spelled it wrong. Okay. Okay, so we have GetNumber, and we're good over here. Let's run it now. And we're going to, now notice it says enter a number. So we are right here. And we'll put in, say, 17. And it says you chose 17. So what happened here? All right. Well, we got over here. We created a number. Now we're saying it's what, let's calculate the number. Let's get a prompt and let's calculate it. And now we have a number in here. And it returns the number. However, let me emphasize that this is not the same prompt as here. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Let's create an integer. And we'll create another one here. And I'll call it some number. Now we need to create an integer here. Integer some number. And we'll initialize it to 15. So now what I'm going to do here, before I return number, I'm going to do some number equals 45. So we just changed the value. Now remember what I said. This is not the same as this. It is GetNumber, and we need to pass some number or to it. Now remember, this is not the same as this. This basically is just making a local copy of this. And then, so once this is done, the brackets here, it's eliminated. So let's run it and see what happens. So we're going to enter a number. We'll call it 22. So you chose 22. Of course, if I had any brains, I would have printed out that. So we're going to do C out some number and then C out some number. Excuse the spelling. And let's try it again. Do I see wiggly line? Nope, all the lines are gone. So we're going to enter a number and we'll call it 27. Okay, so some number, and of course, I never printed some number. Very good. So let's try this one more time. And there you're getting a perfect example of why you do one thing and then test it. Because it's so easy to make a mistake. And if you're doing a whole bunch of things, I've been programming for over, I'm guessing close to 30 years, close to it. And I make mistakes all the time. I do one thing and then test it. I tell my web design students the same thing. When you make a change in CSS, go in there and test it. All right, so let's run this again now. And we'll do 28. And so Yo chose 28, and some number is 15, even though we changed it to 45. So now let's do a function that just does something. It doesn't actually return a value. That's called a void function. So we'll just do void. We type in void, and we'll just call print number. And then we're going to pass the number to print. So we just need to put integer here. Notice the semicolon goes here, but you don't have it down here. So I'm going to do void again and print number. And I know I'm not being consistent with my way I'm calling these things. This should be a capital P. But for time's sake, we're not going to do anything. So we need to pass an integer and then a number. So here we're just going to do C out the number that you passed was and number. And that's it. Now you do not need a return statement because we're not passing a value. The return means the function gets this integer, this number here, it gets returned to this. So you're actually calculating a value and returning it in here. So now what we have to do is number equals, and we're just going to call the function print number with the parentheses. So when you're doing a function that doesn't return anything, you do not have to. So we have print number, and we need to obviously send the number to that we're doing. So that's some number. Actually, number. All right, so let's take a look at this. We gave it a string. We declared a couple variables. We don't need this some number anymore. We're getting a number from a function that's giving it to us. And then we're printing it. You know, maybe think of it a function could be you just you call somebody up, or you go into your contacts in your phone and you get somebody's number, or you call somebody and say, hey, what's the number to Joe? And he says, okay, his number is this. So remember, it's not as complicated as it is, as you think it is. Just do it one step at a time. So here we have enter number, some number, get number, and then we're going to print the number in here. So we should print out the number you passed was that. So let's try that and see what that happens. So we're going to enter a number. We'll go back to 17. Okay, the number you passed was 17. You chose 17 in there. So we probably need a endl here. So what's the big deal? We can do all this stuff. So now let's get a little bit more fancy. So we're going to take maybe a 5-minute break. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write a function that makes us get an integer between 1 and 10, or whatever we want it to be. So we're going to do two constant integers. So we want constant integer, and we'll do lowest number, and that will be 1, and highest number, and that will be 10. So now we're going to create a integer function. Let's see. We'll just call it GetNumber. And we're going to pass one integer. I'm putting a comma. And they're going to pass a second integer. And we're going to put a semicolon. So now this green line is because we have it, but there's no function definition. So let's create a integer. And we're going to do get. Now it should. Does it get one number? Let me see what I called it. Get one number. Okay. And now we're going to do an integer, and we'll call it high. Now I recommend uppercase, so you know that it's a constant, but either way, it's still can't be changed. And let me make this low. So the first thing we need to do is create a prompt. So we're going to do a string. And we don't have to do this. I just like to do it because then I can change it. So we're going to do a string, and we'll call it prompt. And it's going to be enter a number between. Now, let's see if we can do this in a. You'll understand what I'm getting in a second. I want to see if we can do the whole prompt in a string. And the answer really would be no. The only way we could do it is a plus in here. So we really can't do it right now in this particular case, because anytime that you're going to add numbers to a string, you're not going to be able to do it. So we'll just create the string as prompt. And we can try it and see how it works. So actually, just for the heck of it, let's try it. Okay, enter a number. And I encourage you to do this. That's how you learn to see, well, if this is going to work. We'll put a plus sign, and then we're going to put, should put between. And then let's try lowest. And I'm missing the quote. Well, let's see what happens now. And the answer is let's see, high. So let's see if we change this to low and see if it works. All right, so now we're not getting anything, but we have something here that's kind of being nested. Expression must have an integer or unsigned enum type. That's why you have to be very careful about this. So what we're going to do here is cut it. And then we'll create prompt. And we'll make it one change. Equals. Or we can do a C out. Let's do a C out first. So we're going to do a C out. And then we're going to see if we can add it together. But that'll probably be for next week. So we're going to do C out. Enter a number between all right, so I have an extra quote somewhere. I'm going to leave those capitals in there. And let's do just the prompt right now. Again, we're going to do one thing and at a time and do it. So now what we need to do is we're going to go up top here and we're going to do number equals get one. Now notice it's already there because now we declared it. And we're going to put in the lowest number and the highest number. And let's see what this does. So all we're going to do right now is have a prompt that's going to say enter it between here. So there's build errors. Okay, well that's exciting. What are the build errors? Let me see. Get one number must return a value. Okay, that makes sense. So we're going to do return. And we need a integer to return.
You misspelled return, Professor.
Story of my life. I'll just call it the number. And I will return the number. Now let's try it. Now again, I can't say this enough. Do one thing and test it. So enter a number between 1 and 10. Please enter a number. Okay, so that works. Now what we need to do, besides putting this here, all right, so we are going to make sure that a person inputs a valid number. So what we're going to do here is we'll do it two different ways. And this is, to me, the easiest way to do it. But I'll do it the harder way first. So we're going to use a do while loop. So we're going to do, and this is really not the way I would do it. And we'll do down here, while the number is less than low. And then we're going to go back and put some parentheses. And this is meaning, actually should be or, and I will explain it in a second. The number is greater than high. So let me put here CN the number. So let's see, what does all this mean? So if we use a do while instead of a while do, we know that this is going to be done at least one time. So if we did while the number is less than low and greater than higher, we don't know if it's going to actually hit the while loop. So we want to do it this way. So let's go and see what happens when we do this. We need to put in some bad data and see if it kicks out. So we're not going to get any prompt right now. So let's go and run this. So enter number. So let's do 11. So let's do 34. Let's do 0. Let's do -5. We're doing a whole bunch of checking, but now let's do 6 and see what happens. Okay, so now that worked. So we're going to keep the problem is the user has no idea if they did something wrong because it's not telling them anything. So if we put a prompt down here that says you must enter a valid number, even if you enter a valid number, that's not going to, it's going to print either way. So what I normally do is make what is called a Boolean. A Boolean is something that is either true or false. And I will make something called something like need data. And we'll call it true. You can always tell one of mine is either going to say need data or have data. Actually, it's just plain bool. That's what happens when you program in too many different languages. You kind of sometimes forget the sentence. So now what we're going to do here is, let me copy this in here. And I'm going to say need data equals, and I will explain it to you in a second. And then we're putting in here while we need data. All right, so what does all this mumbo jumbo mean? Okay, we're printing something out, and then we're going to get a number, but it's still not going to give us an error message if we did the wrong number. So what we'll do here is test this first, then we'll go back and put in an error message. So they're build errors. How exciting is that? What did I do wrong? Let's see what it says. Missing something. Okay. We're missing the semicolon here. C++ is very mean. It makes you do everything. So let's do 11 right now. So nothing is happening, so we'll do 5, and that works. Okay. So now we need to tell the user they made a mistake. So basically, we'll just do a simple if statement. If need data, then we'll just put C out. You did not put in a valid number or something to that effect. And we don't need an else because we're only going to print this if we had it. So now let's see what happens. Okay, enter, let's try 11. Okay, you did not put it in it. So now we have cosmetic issues. So let's correct the cosmetic issues right away. So we'll do you did not put in C out in here. And I'll show you a little trick if you want to put stuff on the same line without a separate C out. You can do this. Just make sure you end a quote and start off with this. You put in, and I'm going to show you another trick. And then you put in the number. And we probably have some cosmetic stuff that we need to fix. So we'll just go and check that out, see if this works. All right, so let's do 11. Okay, you did not put in a valid number. You put in 11. So then we would need to put in an endl. All right, so let me show you a little trick that you could do. You could, if you want to go to the next line, you just could have put this in here. But whenever you want to break it up physically lines, all you need to do is put in, you just hit the enter key and put in a separate one. It'd be exactly the same as if you did it on the same line, but it just looks a little bit nicer than going all the way over here. So let's run it now and see if we got rid of our cosmetics junk. So let's do 11 and 90 minus 0 and then 4. All right, so that takes care of that. Now, here's another little trick. We're going to put in a backwards A. That means alert. So let's type in something and see what happens. Let's put in 11. Now, I don't know if you heard it, but my computer bell rang off. So that takes care of this. So this is not very, complicated, but I want to start and I want to go, let's go explain this line by line. So we have the get one number, and we have set a higher number and a low number of 1 and 10. So the advantage of this is if I want to make it between 1 and 100, all I have to do is change that. I don't have to do anything else in there. So what we're doing here is we're calling a function. Remember, there are two types of functions. One that returns a value and one that just does something. So normally the things that you do that just does something is like maybe display a prompt or display data. So now we have the get one number where we have a prompt, which we're really not using. We're doing enter a number. And the reason why we're not using it is because we're using low and high in here. We could try a little trick, and I will show you that, and let's see if it works to make it easier. But for right now, we're going to use the C out here. And enter a number. It's going to type in the lowest number and then the highest number in here. Then we're going to get the number. And then we're going to check to see if it's a valid number. So the need data is either true or false. So need data means one of two things has happened because we have an OR. the number is less than the lowest number, or the number is higher than the highest number. Then we're checking, okay, do we still need data? If we still need data, then we have to tell the user, hey, you messed up. And boom. Now, this is not going to solve a problem if the user types in high for it. I don't know if we'll be able to get into error checking in terms of what's called a try and a catch, where if you type in wrong value, normally what you do is you put in a string and you check to make sure that it's the type of, either integer or float that you want in here. So